Hey, Tim, I wanted to ask you a question, and that is, this week, President Bush II has been doing the whole media tour about his book that's come out, and I wondered if you saw any of that, what your thoughts were about his appearances, or any of the comments he made about what was in his book.
Well, I did. I actually watched him in O'Reilly, and it was a pretty cool set. They were at the Air Force Museum. I don't know if you saw that.
Saw part of it.
It was pretty cool because they actually filmed the filming, so they had a camera way back and they were shown, and it was pretty cool. And I liked how they did it, so that might be a good thing for our TV show. Maybe we can go to a museum and film a couple episodes. Anyway, I thought it was interesting because they kept trying to nail him to talk about Obama, and he wouldn't talk about Obama, and he finally got to the point where he just said, buy my book. I'm here talking about my book. It's interesting because it's always hindsight's always 20/20. It's real easy to be, the backseat jockey or the backseat critic. And people, when you read the book, and I read just sections of the book. I didn't read the whole book yet. I'm in the middle of a bunch of other things. But you always wonder what was going on through the guy's head. I mean, he gets in there in 9 months. The stock market pretty much drops. 9/11 happens. I mean, we go to Afghanistan. We're still in Afghanistan. So all these promises that the current president made, we're going to pull out of Afghanistan, we're going to pull out of Iraq. Well, we're still there. In fact, we have more troops there now than we ever had before. So, I mean, it's really easy to sit in the background and judge what's going on. So I'm inclined to read the book.
Oh, I definitely will. My thoughts were, and I said this when he was the president, and I've always said, you may not agree with his policies, but you knew who the man was. You knew what he stood for. You knew what he was about.
Did you know his popularity is an all-time high?
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Did you ever see that picture of him on the internet where he's waving? He says, "Do you miss me yet?"
Miss me, yeah. And when he left office, one of the things I said is, what a class act. Whether you like him or not, he made the transition for Barack Obama into the White House easy. They were welcoming. And even now, and that was one of the things I was hoping you'd bring up, no matter who asked him, whether it was Hannity, O'Reilly, Greta, whoever, they've tried to get him to weigh in, and he said it is not, what do you say? It's it would be a disservice to the office of the president if I were to say something, and I will not dishonor the office of the president.
His father was like that. His dad never criticized Reagan when he left office. There were two things that he said that I thought were interesting. He said that now you will see an objective critic that will come on and they will judge my presidency. He says it's probably going to be a couple years before they judge my presidency. And then the other thing they asked him about was the torturing. And what I found interesting, and I'm not in any way condoning torture at all, but I thought it was interesting. There were only 3 guys that they tortured, and they were all heavy-duty, major generals or major figures in the Al-Qaeda crew. They weren't. So I mean, if you read the newspapers, like, oh my God, they tortured 2,000 prisoners, and they tortured 3 guys. And, I mean, again, I watched what he said, and my friend Sam.
Yes.
Yeah, I like Sam a lot. Sam said, hey, man, we're at war. We're at war. I mean, throw that out the window. The Geneva Convention and civil torture, whatever, that's out there. We needed to get information. Again, I'm not condoning it, but I have a better understanding of where he's coming from when he made that statement.
Well, and I think when they say that it's torture, first off, I'm all for torture. I got no problem with it. I really don't. I don't have a problem with it under those circumstances and who they did it. But I don't know that I would call that torture.
Yeah, but what if they were innocent? What if they weren't Al-Qaeda guys and they were just walking down the street with towels on them?
But were they? No, these were...
I don't know.
They were not. They were definitely high-ranking, no doubt, top guys that they did it to. They were very selective. It wasn't like they grabbed any 3 idiots off the street. They grabbed 3 guys that were there.
They got a lot of guys in Cuba that they cut loose that were just basically walking down the street.
And a lot of those guys have gone back, and it turns out that they are high-ranking officials because they have gone back and they have been recaptured or reemerged. Be that as it may, one of the things that he pointed out is they got more information out of those 3 people than anything. Yeah. And it was interesting because, you always hear how torture, eventually people will just lie to you they'll start admitting anything. And I guess, and I just recently learned this in the last year, that torture, what they do, is when they're interrogating. Whether you want to call it torture, people on the left, fine. They tortured everybody. They were terrible to them all. But when they tortured them or interrogated them, whichever way you want to look at it, what they actually did is they asked a series of questions that they already knew the information on. But they already had the intel. Let me just frame this so that they had the intel on. And what they do is as soon as they start getting affirmative answers that, okay, now they're telling us the truth because they're asking questions they know the answer to, that's when they start asking questions that they don't know answers to. So until they get them conditioned to telling the truth, they don't go into it, which minimizes the amount of false information that can be gathered. So there's more to it than that they know. Because you're going to they'll admit to anything if you torture them. Well, yeah, they might, but they know whether or not with some degree of certainty if it's accurate.
Yeah. And we could talk about this all the time. I want to talk about Keith Olbermann after the break anyway, because I have a statement to make about that. But the fact is, where does the line get moved? Now, I picked up the newspaper today, and I was reading about John Burge, who was the police captain who got convicted after, they went through BS with this just back and forth about didn't he torture, and they got him on a civil contempt of court, which ironically is what Bill Clinton was found guilty of, and he just lost his law license for 5 years. What they said in the paper today is that basically he destroyed the morale of the Chicago Police Department by doing what he's doing, and the way I understand it prior to today is that by prosecuting him, they destroyed the morale of the police department, because now the police department, they're under scrutiny all the time. They don't know what's going to happen. And I think what happened with this torture thing with the CIA agents were sitting there for years wondering whether this, who's the Attorney General?
Napolitano?
No, the guy, Eric Holder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Eric
Holder
Homeland Security.
was talking about prosecuting some of these CIA agents. So it's the point that I'm trying to make is you don't know where the line is, and they keep moving the line. And let's take a break. I want to come back, if you're okay with that.
You can come back. I'll let you come back.
Yeah, well, make your microphone work afterwards. I just want to talk for like 2 minutes about Keith Olbermann, and I hope my friend Bill's listening. I just text messaged him. I said, Bill, if you're listening, 847-931-1510.
Is it?
You don't know him, and I don't want to say his last name on the air.
Is that the
Democrat guy? Yeah. So maybe I just text messaged him and asked him to call in. So let's take a break.
All right.
Dave's giving me the high sign.
All right, we'll be back.